Hi guys, my name is Nabila and welcome to the very first podcast for Healed Over Heels. All right guys, let's jump right into it. We have Miss White here today. Miss White, why don't you take an opportunity to introduce yourself? Hello guys, my name is Nabila S. White. I go by Miss White and I am a licensed professional counselor and I am the founder of Healed Over Heels and I'm here to talk about healing. Thank you so much for having me. All right, so let's talk about healing. What is healing to you? Healing to me is overcoming obstacles and just compartmentalizing things that have come to destroy you. So healing is dealing with your problems and not letting your problems deal with you. Healing is understanding the things that you have went through and learning the lessons behind them instead of letting them consume you. Okay, can you give us a little more information about your healing process and how that happened? So my healing process and journey started a little bit back in 2024, roughly around 2.5 years after the passing of my father. I had noticed that I had been going through a lot of stuff. I was dealing with depression, I was dealing with grief, I was trying to figure out things, I was looking for answers, I was trying to get a better understanding of death and process things that were going on in life. I was dealing with, my oldest daughter dealing with an injury. So healing for me started once I recognized that I was drowning in grief and depression. And so I realized that, I didn't look the same, I didn't feel the same. I had developed all of these different illnesses and they couldn't tell me where they were coming from. There were really no root cause and I was just drowning in stress, sorrow, and grief and depression. So healing started for me as I identified I had a problem and I just have been working on the last 1.5 years on becoming a better me. Okay, how did you come up with the name for the show, Healed Over Heels? That's a very great question. The way that I came up with the name of the show, Healed Over Heels, was because I was described by one of my clients' associates as the therapist with the nice shoes. And I was flabbergasted when somebody was like that was the way that she described me. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so smart. I do all of this great work. I'm a therapist. And you guys are walking around calling me the therapist with the good shoes, not with the good interventions. So that's where the Healed Over Heels came about. I didn't want people to look at me and think that just because I looked good on the outside that I was all pretty packaged. I wanted them to understand that, me being healed was way more important than my heels and my shoes that I wear. Elaborate. This seems very interesting. Without going too in depth with it for time purposes, the way that I would elaborate on it is that I had some issues that I was dealing with from my past, not really childhood issues, but just things that I had experienced from relationships to things that I didn't like about how I was being a parent and the death of my dad. So I had realized maybe like 6 months after my dad had passed away that I had developed an unhealthy way of forming relationships with men, trying to heal them because I could never save my dad from his substance abuse issues. Can you give us a little bit more information about healing and your journey with healing? A little bit more information about healing and my journey with healing. My journey with healing is a little bit unique because most people are healing from some type of trauma, some type of experience, some type of childhood issues. My healing journey was about me healing from me. So that's the reason why I did the podcast, the initial episodes, the way that I did, because I realized at this point in my life, I was destroying myself, that I was trying to hold on to the old me and the new me, and it was killing me slowly inside. So that's basically the way I describe my process and my journey for healing. So when did your healing journey start? As I stated previously, my healing journey started maybe roughly between 1.5 years to 2 years after my dad had passed. My dad has been gone for 4 years now, and for the first 2 years, I just struggled with life. I struggled with coping. I struggled with understanding the process of death, even though I have been through it with multiple people. So my healing journey started when I realized that, as time was progressing, I wasn't growing. I was remaining stagnated, and I was, struggling and suffering and sunk so deeply into depression and grief. That's a lot. That's a lot. Can you elaborate on the healing process for a therapist, and how did you accept that and dive into that? That's a really good question. The healing process and therapy for a therapist, it was really extremely difficult for me because I had been in therapy prior to dealing with grief and depression, but it was for my divorce. Like, I felt like me and my family, meaning me and my 2 daughters, needed to go to therapy to understand that, this person who has been a part of our life is no longer going to be in our home, but continues to be a part of our life. So dealing with grief and depression from this side of the chair, and opposed to being on the other side of the chair, was a very difficult process. I think it was difficult because I had a lot of coping skills and coping mechanisms and interventions. I had this pretty toolbox, but I just didn't know how to use them for myself. So dealing with any type of mental health challenge as a therapist is hard because the tools and interventions that you use on other people don't particularly work on you. What would you recommend for somebody like me who's interested in starting a therapeutic journey, a journey for healing? I would recommend that anybody who is looking to begin a journey towards healing to identify the goal. I think goals are very important. I think that they should develop a short-term goal and a long-term goal, and then we can work towards that goal. But if we don't know where we're heading, we don't know where to start. How would you identify somebody who may need to heal, or who may need some more information about healing? Healing in anything therapeutic is just like substance abuse. You have to identify that there is an issue. So I don't think that I can identify someone who needs to start healing, or who needs therapy, or needs a healing journey. I think that that's something that they need to identify. They have to be interested in healing and doing the work, and then we can go from there to get them where they need to be. But I don't think that I'm best suited to identify anybody who needs to start a healing journey or who needs healing. I think that's something that comes from within. So why is the topic of healing coming about now? Why is it important for right now in today's society and the climate that we're in? Can you tell me how this ties into healing and the process and its journey? I think that right now the importance of healing and the journey that comes along with healing is important now because of the climate and the culture of the world that we're in now. I feel like we're in COVID 2.0 without COVID. I feel like there's a lot of different things going on politically. I think there's a lot of things going on internally. I think people don't really have a clear understanding of mental health. I think that now the whole healing process is important because since COVID, we have been talking about mental health and everything like that, but we're not digging deep into mental health. So now that COVID is over and people know that mental health is a thing and everybody has experienced some form of mental health that they're aware of since COVID, I think right now is the time to elaborate and keep, growing and more stronger than ever, introducing the mental health process and healing and the benefits of getting mental health treatment. Can you give me a little bit more information about that? I think people go into therapy, and when they go into therapy, they start, and I don't think that they finish. I don't think that people understand that mental health is a journey. It's something that is like, your annual checkups, or it's like working out. It's something that you have to work on consistently every day. You have to make your mental health a priority. You have to identify things that affect your mental health. Have you ever been placed in a predicament where you had to choose hustling over healing? I think in the beginning, I had to choose hustling over healing. I was pregnant with my youngest daughter, and early on, I just, let me give you a little background. So I went to Virginia State University and I wasn't able to finish school there because of financial reasons. So the minute I found out that I was pregnant, I wasn't really focused on being a good mom. I was really focused on being a provider. My whole time, I just was like, I just don't want my kids to have to drop out of college because they couldn't afford it. So as my daughter was 5 months old, I started my first company. And from that time, I was hustling from the time she was 5 months, roughly probably to around the time my dad died. So that whole time I was focused on money and making money and creating generational wealth and kicking down doors that all I was thinking about was hustling. And then when my dad died, I realized that there was more to life than money and making money. And I slowed down tremendously and focused on, being happy, healing, being a better mom, being a better person. So, yeah. How did you make the decision that healing was probably more purposeful than hustling? I made the decision that healing was more purposeful than hustling when I saw the results. Like, I was just like a happy person. I was more grounded. Other than, the dealing with teenage girls, other than that, I realized like nothing affected me, not in a negative way. I could still feel, but I wasn't affected by things that normally would bother me. I realized that life was too short. I realized that I didn't need an answer or response to everything. I didn't have to throw rocks at all of the glass houses. I just started to realize that, nothing was that serious, especially not for me dying from stress. Looking back at your choices and those decisions, which one do you think is more important, hustling or healing? Healing. I associate healing with growing and with evolving. So I'm going to say that healing is more important than almost anything. Not everything, but almost anything. So I know you have a long-standing history with being a serial entrepreneur, and you have been healing as you hustle. How difficult has that been for you, and how did you overcome and sacrifice and prioritize? Thank you so much for asking me that question and for owning in on the fact that being an entrepreneur and being a mother and being a this and being a that is a challenge within itself. So prioritizing, it took me a long time. Once I started hustling, it was very difficult for me to turn it off. So it was always just like go, 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 go. That's how I got in the position of having 7 companies. I would just continuously chase ideas, chase dreams. I'm a huge risk taker. So now, because I have healed from a lot of my superwoman syndrome, it's a little bit more difficult. But and while I was in the process, it wasn't that difficult. So I would say I think God purposely slowed me down and helped me understand the importance of self-care. You know what I'm saying? Boundaries, compartmentalizing things, and just sorting things out and putting them in the places that they belong. So what does that look like? Well, I think that it looks like identifying your strengths and your weaknesses. As I said earlier on, I'm pretty sure that you can understand how difficult something could be. When you're in it, you don't see it. So unfortunately, I had to remove myself from working so hard and hustling and focus strictly on healing. Trying to juggle 2 things at the same time is really difficult. And I had to understand that sometimes I'm going to be giving 30% to being a mother, but giving 60% to being an entrepreneur and giving 100% to being a hustler. It just really just depends. So what it looks like, it looks really chaotic. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. And it is chaotic. And I just hope to never be in that chaos again. If you can describe it internally, what would you say? Oh, I was dying inside internally. What it looked like internally is what was showing up on my medical records. It was looking like high blood pressure. It was looking like sinuses. It was looking like stress. It was looking like a bunch of medical internal illnesses that weren't really there because I was so overworked. And it's an analogy I have that I use with my clients. It's like, if you don't deal with your problems will deal with you. So I felt like that I was running around and I was blackening my heart. So At one point, I don't think that my body was pumping blood. I think it was just like pumping hatred. It was pumping fear. It was pumping anxiety, because I was just like so all over the place. That's what it looked like internally. I just looked like an emotional roller coaster. So I understand last month you introduced the Healionaires Network, a place for individuals to heal publicly and privately. Can you tell me a little bit about the Healionaires and how did that name come about? It's very powerful. Okay, so the Healionaires is a spinoff, or like a conjunction with my app. So I developed an app, and the name of the app is iCounsel, and it's a social forum for individuals to seek professional help in opposed to getting on social media platforms and venting. So the Healionaires Network is a safe place for people to come in here and discuss their problems, where they can do it, you know, in a group setting, in a private setting, in any setting that they want, or if they want to do it individually. Sometimes people don't want people to know their problems, so they can do the classes and they can do the work individually. So it's a place where there's all of these different therapeutic interventions to help you with depression, anxiety, or whatever you think that you're going with, to identify if you're really going through these things, because sometimes you're really not. And the reason how I created the name is like the Healionaires, because I want people to feel healed and wealthy and healthy and holistic. So basically, I took the Naires part from being a millionaire, and then the Healionaires part for being a therapist and a healer. I just equivalated because, you know, everybody loves money and wealth and success and stability, and I just felt as though, like, if you were healed, I think, and you were showing up your better self, you would have a better chance at being, you know, wealthy. And wealth is not always contributed to money. It can be whatever you think wealth is. What is the purpose behind the Healionaires Network and the podcast Healed Over Healed? Can you tell us a little bit more about the origin of the name and the concept, and what purpose or impact do you want to make? Well, I've already explained the meaning behind the name, and the impact that I want to have is on minorities, you know, African Americans, Asians, Hispanics. I want them to benefit from therapy the same way that the majority do. I want them to understand that everybody struggles with some form of mental health at some point in their life, and I want them to understand that it's not what people have labeled it as, you know, the old term mentally retarded or crazy. I want people to understand that we all deal with some form of mental health. Depression is living in the past, anxiety is living in the future, and we all have sat back and be like, dang, I wish I would have never did that, or I'm uncertain about what the future holds. So I just want people to have a better understanding of mental health, and I want the impact to be that you can overcome anything as long as you do the work. Do you have a direct plan on how you foresee that coming into fruition? I think that would come into fruition by this podcast doing well. I mean, for this information getting out there, I think that I have an undergrad degree in marketing, that I can market this product, and I pray that it be a success. I just, you know, get into the app stores and let's see what happens. How do you differentiate between leadership skills and mothership techniques in a group of women that you're trying to motivate and help heal? The way that I would differentiate between motherhood and leadership is, one, requires commitment and compassion, and I think that I'm more serious as a mom than I am as a leader. I feel like when it comes to leadership style, I allow my employees to be put in a place where they can own their strengths. So wherever they're going to operate best, I think I kind of do that with being a mother too, but I think that I'm more stern as a mother than I am as a leader, because I'm responsible for the outcome of my children more than I'm responsible for the outcome of my employees and my team. So when it comes to my kids, you know what I'm saying, I want them to be the best versions of themselves, but I also want them to be a great example of displaying the type of mother I have been to them and the type of attributes I have contributed to society. So I think it's just two totally different things. Even though I'm passionate about my business, I'm more passionate about the outcome of my daughters as a mother. What are some of the attributes that you have as a mom and as a leader, and how do they help or harm you in those two roles? My leadership skills as a mother and as a CEO, both of them, I try to lead by example or whatever the case may be, but I think that I have way more tolerance for my children than I do for my employees, and I think that's because they're kids and these people are adults. So I think that I'm a stern leader. I don't think I'm too stern as a parent. I think there's a healthy medium. I think I'm lackadaisic until they, push me to the edge. So I think as a leader, I'm stern, I'm flexible, I'm caring, I'm compassionate. I'm very, I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm a very giving. I have a lot of benefits working for my company. And I feel like it's the same way with my kids. I mean, you do well, if you do what you're supposed to do, I'm going to give you everything that you need. But if you don't do what you're supposed to do, I'm going to pull back. So I would say in both capacities, I just am who I am. Like, let's just wrap that up real quick. I'm the same person as a mother, as a friend, as a leader, as a civilian, as a daughter, as a cousin, as a friend. I'm just who I am. So I'm very stern. I'm very straightforward. I'm very passionate. I think that that's just who I am. I'm a passionate person. And yeah, I don't think I have anything that I differentiate. I just think that I am who I am, and I'm who I am in every capacity. So as a woman, as a mother, as an African American, as an entrepreneur, as an individual who is presented as successful, how do you handle generational codes? And what generational codes do you think intertwine with all of those titles? What are some of the generational codes that you have noticed during your healing process? Generational codes. I'm not really savvy with a lot of the generational codes and the pros and the cons that come with them, because I grew up in an all African American community. So I'm from I've had all African American teachers up until I was in high school. So I'm not really, I grew up watching A Different World and The Cosby Show. So back in the 80s, it was a different culture and a different generation. There are generational codes and curses and stuff like that I've heard of. But as far as them affecting me personally, I didn't have that kind of experience. I think one of the biggest nuances that I have is making sure that I have a healthy relationship with my kids so that they're good friends. I think that people who are not good friends and who don't have girl code and are not girls, I think that stems from relationships with their mother. That's one thing that I have noticed and I have researched. I think like the whole sweeping stuff under the rug. I think minimizing things. I think shade. I don't like the whole term shade. Those are some of the things, but a lot of the generational curses and stuff like that, generational codes, I'm not really too privy to. Even though I grew up, in urban area and I've experienced a lot of poverty and stuff like that, I just knew that those were the circumstances of my parents, that they had nothing to do with me, so I don't kind of own into that. So I think that's the reason why the sky is the limit for me, and I'm able to do things that I want to do, because I don't have a lot of stigmas placed on me or were placed on me as a child. I grew up fairly comfortable, not wealthy financially, but I was comfortable in the skin that I was in. I was able to be me, so a lot of that stuff didn't affect me. So right now in the climax of therapy, mental health, and everything, I know that boundaries is a huge issue. I have huge boundary issues. I have a child that's a people pleaser, and then I have a child that's totally guarded and disconnected. Can you speak to the boundary issues that come about throughout the years and that you have struggled with or have not struggled with, and you have helped people heal from and heal with or deal with? Okay, so what a wonderful question. And I'm kind of like happy that you asked this, because I have really, really poor boundaries when it comes to people that I love and I care about. So I want to make things as comfortable as possible for them. And most of the time I have realized that I'm not helping them, I'm enabling them. So I know that to this day, I can't say no to people. So instead of me saying no, I'll just be like, oh, I got to call you back. I'll ghost you, or I won't talk to you for a while. So I am getting better, because previously, before my healing journey, I used to just say yes. Even if I didn't have it or if I didn't want to do it, I would just say yes, because I wanted to make that person feel good. And I felt bad for them because they weren't in the position that I was in. So when it comes to healing and boundaries, they're very important, because I think that you are going to be stagnated in the process if you don't establish and set clear boundaries with people. Because as a giver, we're surrounded by takers, and takers are going to continuously take, and we're going to continuously give until we have no more. So I think that boundaries are one of the most important things to establish in the healing process. And I know for me, it was just me having to cut off people. A lot of people thought that that wasn't a healthy way of dealing with it, but I just have to do what works best for me. And whatever boundary you set, you can keep and you can uphold. Before we close out this segment, just give me a clear definition of boundaries and what they are and what they look like. A clear definition of boundaries is not doing anything that makes you uncomfortable or that you're not comfortable with. A clear definition of boundaries are your standards, your policies, your procedures in engaging or having a relationship with somebody. And it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your cousin, your kids, your coworker. So it's just setting a rule of principles that align with who you are. I think that's a good definition of boundaries. If today's episode resonated with you in any way, shape, form, or fashion, I would like for you to commit to healing with me. I would like for you to walk with me on this journey. My name is Nabella, and I'm your host. And you don't have to be alone. Let's heal together. Thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you for allowing me to share my wealth of knowledge, my experiences, and I hope that you guys enjoy Healed Over Heels. Welcome to the Healionaires Network.